El Chapo is locked up for life at the Supermax prison in Colorado. And in a letter from behind bars, the billionaire drug lord seems irked about the lack of freedom being afforded to him by the Bureau of Prisons.
Conviction, we expect, will bring a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. It is a sentence from which there is no escape and no return.
At his peak, he wasn't a tech titan or a Wall Street mogul, but Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was the head of a criminal enterprise with revenues rivaling a Fortune 500 company. He was the leader of the world's most powerful and vicious drug cartel. His name is legendary, tied to impossible prison escapes and staggering wealth. But the real story of his reign isn't an adventure. It's written in blood, fear, and unimaginable brutality. The truth is much darker than the myth. In this documentary, we expose 10 of the most brutal facts about El Chapo's rise and bloody rule. Fact 1. The brutal beginning. To understand the monster, you have to understand the boy. Joaquin Guzman was born into crushing poverty in the remote village of La Tuna, Sinaloa, a region known as Mexico's cradle of drug trafficking. This wasn't a world of choices. It was a world of survival. By his teens, he was already following his father into the drug trade, growing marijuana to earn money. He learned fast, working his way up from a local grower to a logistics supervisor for the powerful drug lords who ran the Guadalajara cartel. This early life wasn't just about poverty. It was a brutal education in violence. He learned that in his world, ruthlessness wasn't a flaw, but the key to getting ahead. This upbringing didn't just shape him. It forged the man who would build an empire on the suffering of others. Fact 2. The architect of a global drug empire. When the Guadalajara cartel splintered, El Chapo didn't just grab a piece of the action. He started building an empire that would dwarf his predecessors. Under his command, the Sinaloa cartel became a global corporation of death, trafficking cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamine on an industrial scale. His operations eventually grew into a global network with reach across multiple continents, including North and South America, Europe, and Asia. At its height, his network was one of the single largest suppliers of illegal drugs pouring into the United States. This wasn't just a criminal operation. It was a logistical masterpiece of poison, feeding addiction and fueling violence thousands of miles away. Fact 3. The tyranny of innovation. El Chapo's genius wasn't just in volume, but in method. He was a true innovator of smuggling, constantly pioneering techniques that outsmarted authorities. He commissioned the construction of sophisticated, mile-long tunnels under the US-Mexico border, complete with lighting and ventilation. His cartel hid tons of cocaine inside commercial products like cans of jalapeno peppers and fire extinguishers, turning legitimate trade into a tool of the drug war. They even used giant catapults to fling drugs over the border fence. US authorities dubbed him a master logistician. But every brilliant innovation served a singular, brutal purpose: to move more product and expand his power. Fact 4. Violence as a management tool. For El Chapo, violence wasn't a last resort. It was a core part of his business plan. To protect his turf and crush his rivals, he used ruthless armies of sicarios, or hitmen, with groups like Los Negros and Los Texas linked to his organization. He has been linked to hundreds of acts of violence, and the true number of murders is believed to be much higher. During his trial, witnesses shared chilling accounts of his personal brutality. One former bodyguard testified that Guzman personally tortured two rivals for hours before shooting them and ordering their bodies thrown onto a bonfire. Another account from his trial detailed how he ordered a victim buried alive while still gasping for air. Fact 5. The King of Prison. In 1993, El Chapo was captured in Guatemala, extradited to Mexico, and sentenced to about 20 years in a maximum security prison. For anyone else, that would have been the end. For El Chapo, it was just a new office. Through a systematic campaign of bribery that corrupted officials at the highest levels, he effectively turned his cell into a command center. He reportedly had access to cell phones, lavish meals, and women, all while continuing to manage his global empire from behind bars. Prison wasn't a punishment. It was a fortress from which he could operate, proving his money could infect any institution meant to stop him. The prison's warden himself was later implicated and arrested after El Chapo's first escape. Fact 6. The humiliation of 2 escapes. El Chapo's legend was cemented by his uncanny ability to escape maximum security prisons. In 2001, he slipped out of Puente Grande. The popular story is that he was hidden in a laundry cart, a feat that required the cooperation of dozens of prison employees. However, many believe that story was a cover, and he may have simply walked out with the help of corrupt officials. After being recaptured in 2014, he did it again. In July 2015, the world watched in disbelief as he vanished from Altiplano, Mexico's most secure facility. He'd escaped through a hole under his shower that led to a mile-long tunnel, complete with ventilation, lighting, and a modified motorcycle on rails. This engineering marvel was a stunning display of the cartel's power and a profound humiliation for the Mexican government, proving that no wall could truly hold him. Fact 7. The unseen victims. The story of El Chapo is often told through his power and escapes, but the true story is written in the suffering of countless victims. The cartel wars he fueled left a wake of unimaginable devastation across Mexico. Entire communities were forced to live under a state of terror, plagued by shootings, kidnappings, and disappearances. The conflict led to the discovery of mass graves, filled with the bodies of rivals and innocent people caught in the crossfire. Mothers still search for their missing children, while forensic teams continue to unearth clandestine graves. This is the brutal human cost of his empire, a cost measured not in dollars, but in shattered lives. Fact 8. The brutality of his sons. The cruelty of the Sinaloa cartel didn't begin or end with El Chapo. It's a legacy passed down to his sons, known as Los Chapitos. After his final capture, they modernized the cartel and in many ways made it even more ruthless. A U.S. Justice Department indictment revealed their monstrous methods of torture. According to the indictment, captives were taken to a ranch, where they were interrogated with electrocution and waterboarding. It alleges that in one instance, a federal officer was tortured for 2 hours by having a corkscrew twisted into his muscles before the open wounds were packed with hot chilies. The indictment also describes how some victims were fed, dead or alive, to tigers kept by the Chapitos as pets. This horrifying cruelty shows that the father's depravity was inherited and perhaps even amplified by his sons. Fact 9. The trial of the century. After his final capture and extradition to the United States in 2017, the full scale of El Chapo's brutality was finally laid bare for the world. His 11-week trial in New York featured 56 witnesses who spoke for over 200 hours. They detailed the inner workings of the Sinaloa cartel, from multi-billion-dollar drug deals to cold-blooded murder. Jurors heard about a soundproofed murder room with a drain in the floor for easy cleanup, and learned how Guzman ordered his own cousin killed for a perceived betrayal. In 2019, he was convicted on all 10 counts, sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years, and ordered to forfeit over $12.6 billion. The trial closed the door on his freedom and put the systematic evil he orchestrated on permanent record. Fact 10. The brutal legacy. The final brutal fact is this: even with El Chapo locked away in a supermax prison, the violence he perfected continues to rage. His removal didn't end the war. It created a power vacuum that unleashed even more chaos. Factions of the Sinaloa cartel, including the one led by his sons, are now waging a bloody war against each other and rival groups for control of his old territories. The violent clashes that erupt when a major figure is arrested, like the gun battles that shut down the city of Culiacan after his son's capture, show how deeply entrenched the violence is. The system of violence he architected has outlived him, proving that El Chapo wasn't the disease itself, but a symptom of a much larger, more intractable conflict. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was a man of brutal contradictions, a folk hero to some, a monster to the rest of the world. He rose from nothing to become one of the most powerful and feared criminals in history. But his legacy isn't one of daring escapes or fantastic wealth. It's a legacy of terror, addiction, and unending violence that continues to plague Mexico and the world. His story is a dark reminder that behind the myth of every kingpin lies a brutal reality of suffering, and that cutting off the head of the snake doesn't always kill the venom.